Attention, attention, all personnel. Incoming podcast. This is MASH Matters.
Welcome to MASH Matters, the podcast where we celebrate the greatest television series of all time, a little show we like to call MASH. And I like to call this guy Private Igor because that's who he played on MASH. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Ryan. Okay, here we are celebrating the best show ever made in the history of TV, right? I mean, that's what we're saying, of course.
Yeah, obviously. Why would we be doing this podcast if it wasn't?
Exactly. And why would I be doing it had I not been Private Igor Straminsky? I mean,
exactly.
Why else would I be here? God's sake.
So let's just get right to this, Jeff.
All right.
You and I both have had a couple of weeks here that have been kind of eventful. Mother Nature has paid both of us a visit. I got socked in with an ice storm here in the Midwest, and we got an inch of ice and 5 inches of snow and tree limbs falling on power lines and people without power for days.
Oh, boo-hoo, boo-hoo.
But at least our town wasn't on fire. So there's that.
Yes.
You had the flip side of that coin.
I did.
You are right there in the middle of all the chaos that we've seen on the news with the wildfires as of late. Now, when we're recording this, typically we don't say when we're recording. We're recording this on Sunday, January 19th.
Mm-hmm.
And since we last recorded, that's when all this happened.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been through it these last couple of weeks. And by the time this releases, we don't know what will happen with these fires. But as of right now, how are you doing?
Well, good question. Thank you for asking. First of all, I know that people asked about the welfare of all the people on MASH, and I know we talked about that. Certainly, Al and Loretta live in New York on the eastern side of the country, so they weren't in any danger. Gary Berghoff lives in Florida, so he's okay. It was basically Jamie and myself.
Mike doesn't live in the area that was threatened either, right?
Mike does not live in a threatened area as well. So pretty much it was Jamie and myself. I live fairly close to the Altadena fire, the Eaton Canyon fire, and Jamie is in an area that was close to the other portions of the fire. So the two of us were kind of going, but fortunately the fires did not decide to go after us, and we are both safe and sound. So that's good.
As of this recording, everything is okay.
Yeah, that's right. As of this
subject to change without notice, right?
You never know. And certainly the Mother Nature, the wind may pick up. Right now, the fire closest to me is about 55% contained, they say, and hopefully they're going to get even more of it contained later. And Jamie's area as well, kind of the same situation. The problem is, and the issue for both of us is that winds are scheduled to pick up later on today and tonight and going into the next 2 days. So the worry is certainly that the wind could stir up, smoldering embers and kick the fire up again and then make it very mad. And this whole thing could start again, which I hope does not happen. It's pretty tough. The Pacific Palisades area, a lot of people lost their homes. In the Altadena area, a lot of people lost their homes, and a lot of people. So as I said to you earlier, this is the most catastrophic local event I have ever been involved in or ever witnessed. And I've been a native Californian here, so I've lived here all my life. I've never seen anything like this. So it's been pretty awful. The biggest thing, I think, is the concern and the tension. Most people walking around very exhausted because everybody's concerned for other people and themselves. So it's a rough one. We all hope it's over pretty soon.
Well, a lot of listeners are sending their love to you and hoping that everything works out for the better. The fires are still raging as of this recording. They're not as bad, but if the winds start picking up, it could be a whole new ballgame.
Definitely, yeah.
If there's any change to this update, we'll cut in right here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if there's no update here, then everything is still okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we appreciate people concerned certainly about me and Jamie. But I have nothing but concern and heartbreak and love in my heart for people who have lost so much in their homes. They just walk out of their homes with a shirt off on their back and get in a car and drive away. And then they come back, a couple of days later and see the whole thing as a burned piece of rubble.
Right, because this thing was moving so fast. It's not like you can go pack up a U-Haul.
Yeah.
You get out of town.
And like I said to you, we got a warning. My wife and I got a warning over our cell phones that we were warned that an evacuation was being prepared for us in this area. And freaked us out. We ran around and I collected underwear and T-shirts. I don't know what to put in the bag. And we have we have George, and we have to figure out what to do with George and how we're going to move George into a hotel. And not every hotel wants to take a bird.
Right.
And so I had to call around different hotels and say, will you take a bird? No, only dogs and cats, because birds have an odor. What are you talking about? Birds don't smell. Dogs smell. Cats smell. So we had to go through that, but I finally found 2 hotels that would take poor George. But luckily, knocking on wood, we didn't have to. But again, my heart goes out, and I know everybody's goes out to the poor people who are really, really suffering. And there's a lot of them. It's a tough time. So let's get to the funny stuff now.
Right. Yes, exactly. Well, because of all of this, we haven't had the opportunity to do the prep work that we typically do for a podcast episode. So we thought that we would reach out to our Patreon VIPs. These are the people who support the show financially. You can find the link there at mashmatters.com/support. But we put out a message to our VIP saying, hey, in about 24 hours, we're going to record a podcast. We're not going to have time to do research. We're looking for questions, comments, silly, whatever. Give us something to talk about.
Yes.
We're just going to open it up and read these questions and see what we got, because I have not looked at these questions since I posted on Patreon, which is not what I typically do. I don't necessarily like going into one of these, unprepared.
Well, folks, you might want to listen to a different podcast now. Thanks for listening this far.
But, the thing is, I also thought if they're questions that we don't know the answers to, well, our listeners are used to that. So it's not going to be really any different from any of our other episodes.
No big shock there, huh?
No. So I'm going to open up Patreon right now for the first time, and we're just going to read some of these questions. And we may not get to everybody's question. I appreciate all of our VIPs who posted questions. We'll get to as many as we can here. Let's start off right here. Here we go. John Hatch. He says, if you could make any background or recurring character, excluding Private Igor Straminsky, a series regular, who would it be and why?
Okay.
He's not excluding Private Igor out of spite. He's not saying that Private Igor doesn't deserve to be a series regular. I think he just knows that would be our default answer.
Yes, it will certainly be my default answer anyway.
Exactly.
What else can I default on?
Here's mine. Sidney. I think Sidney Freeman. It would have been nice to see Sidney have his own series, but not like MASH. What I'm thinking is Lou Grant, the series Lou Grant. Mm-hmm. That was a character that was on the Mary Tyler Moore Show, which was a situation comedy. But the character was on a series, Lou Grant, that was not a comedy. I think Sidney could have done that, where it's a more serious and, he's dealing with these effects of the war and he has different patients that come in and out of his life. Maybe he solves crimes too. Who knows? But I think Sidney would be my answer to that.
Now, maybe I misunderstood. Is this somebody that would be signed on to MASH as being a permanent character, or is this somebody who is going to go on to do another show?
Well, okay. He said a series regular. I still think Sidney probably could have been a series regular.
Okay.
That's true. I didn't. Okay. So here's the thing. I'm going to read the questions, but I'm not actually going to answer the questions that they ask. I'm just going to answer questions that I want to answer in my head.
Straight. I like that.
Point well taken, Jeff.
And I only asked that because I wanted to understand exactly what I was answering. Otherwise, I could go to prison.
No, right. John.
Go to Match Matters prison.
You are actually, pointing out the actual question that John posted.
Thank you, John, for confusing the heck out of us right up front. I agree with you about Sidney Freeman. I agreed that he could have gone on to be a character. He could have had his own show. Mm-hmm. He had a great presence. He had great intelligence. He had great understanding, and listening to him was a really wonderful thing. And I think he would have been a very interesting character to be that every week, helpful to a lot of people. I think that would have been a really good idea.
Yeah.
In terms of being a regular character on MASH, it's hard because, number one, you got G.W. Bailey, Rizzo, and Kelly, who is remarkable and wonderful. It would be hard not to say, okay, GW or Kelly, because they're two of the, most known characters, I think, other than the main cast and, of course, Private Igor. I probably would come down on the side of Kelly just because she's Kelly, and she would have been a good addition to the cast, I think.
Okay.
As well as Private Igor.
All right, so let's move on. Gabrielle, she says, I hope my question will be easy enough for you guys to answer. Well, we'll see.
Gabrielle has a lot of confidence in us.
Yeah. How do you think McLean Stevenson felt about Harry Morgan replacing him on MASH? I'm curious what you both think about this topic. Well, I don't know. What do you think, Jeff?
I don't know personally either. I would imagine, McLean Stevenson was a really bright, wonderful guy and a terrific actor. I can't imagine he would have any bad feelings about a terrific, incredibly talented man like, what's his name? Harry Morgan taking that role. I just can't imagine. And I think he was probably thrilled. I don't think he was thrilled about his decision to leave MASH, and he obviously admitted that in some of those tapes. But I don't think he would have any negative feelings about Harry Morgan at all.
Yeah, I don't know that he was also very thrilled with the fact that they killed him off on the series.
No, he was
so
thrilled with that.
But yeah, I don't know. He worked with Harry Morgan. Harry Morgan appeared as General Steele in the episode "The General Flips at Dawn," and so they did share the screen. They also worked together on a Disney movie. I think it was The Cat from Outer Space. So they did know each other. They had worked together. My guess is that if I was leaving a show as popular as MASH and I found out that I was being replaced by someone of Harry's caliber, I think I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
But we don't know.
We don't.
You're going to hear that a lot probably today.
We don't know, do we? And we're sticking to it.
Yeah. Ann Hicks says, does Jeff think George would recognize Jeff if she saw MASH? And do people ask how Walter got his name? So if this is your first time listening, George is Jeff's parrot. Walter is my dog. I will answer mine first. Do people ask how Walter got his name? Walter was named Walter by the shelter where we adopted him.
Oh, how wonderful. I didn't know that. I'm learning something now with all our Patreon friends. Thank you. That's interesting.
Now, had I known he was going to be this neurotic jerk that he is sometimes, I don't know that I would have picked him. But anyway, that's why Walter is Walter. We didn't name him, the shelter did, and we just kept it. So Anne asks, if George were to sit down and watch an episode of MASH, do you think that George would recognize you?
No. She would not. She would not care. She doesn't. For some reason, George does not like television. I keep showing it to her. It's like, look, it's me, honey. Look, George, it's Jeff. She does not care at all. Turns her head, tries to get away from me. She's not a visual creature like that. She likes a noise. If there's music or singing or arguments or a lot of loud noise going on outside, she really gets excited, and that turns her on. That's what attracts her. But television could care less. So I failed miserably to attract my bird with me on television.
It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you for the question, though. That was fun.
Private Michael Berkey reporting as requested. The other day, I was watching season 2's As You Were. I've seen this episode so many times, but never noticed that in the opening credits, the extras out of boredom are on a platform doing some sort of line dance in the camp. Then, of course, Frank gets a hernia and the war gets going again. Then at Der Tag, that episode, the same extras are doing the line dance again during another lull in the war. Jeff, were you ever a part of the group? And what dance were they doing? It's one of the most brilliant, subtle moments in MASH that keep it fresh, even for the most diehard fans. P.S. Jeff, please don't respond to my question by saying I thought there would be refreshments here. And Ryan, winter also sucks in Pennsylvania. So that's good to know.
Well, what is the private's name? I'm sorry, Private
Michael Berkey.
Private Michael. No, George would not recognize me on TV. No, I'll try to answer your question. I have no idea. I don't remember that scene. I don't think it would be me. I probably, if somebody said, "Hey, we're going to do a line dance thing," I would hide somewhere. Would probably not have volunteered for that. So no, I probably was not in that group of people, though I'm sure there are very nice people, but I wasn't in there.
I would have been more surprised if you did remember it. Oh yeah, that was a little number that we called mess tent brag or whatever. I don't know. Okay, moving on. Again, these are our Patreon VIPs.
Yeah.
mashmatters.com/support. Jason Messick says several different thoughts and questions. 1, would love to hear Michael O'Keefe as a guest. Fantastic acting in his episodes. 2, what is your favorite performance by a guest actor? 3, did you ever notice that in the episode Your Hit Parade, when the Cranko board gets hit by the hammer, a pawn bounces several times and ends up in a martini glass? Just a fun little detail. 4, a big thank you to you both. My teenage son enjoys listening to the podcast and it further connects us to the show. 5, air raid! Air raid! Okay, so Jason, which ones are actually questions? Michael O'Keefe as a guest. We would love to have Michael O'Keefe as a guest. I would love to talk to him. So Michael, if you're listening, hit us up, baby. We'd love to hear from you. Mm-hmm. Your favorite performance by a guest actor. Well, I said it recently on the season 8 recap, Edward Herrmann as Newsom. That for me is it. I love Edward Herrmann, and I also love Susan St. James. Do you have a guest star that endeared himself to you?
I really liked Harry Morgan's guest appearance when he was on
as General Steele.
General Steele, yeah. I thought that was amazing. I thought, wow, look at that. Because I've been a huge fan of Harry Morgan's forever. I watched a movie of his when I think it was a little kid, where he played there was a little girl who got stuck in a sewer system or something, and he got her out of it or something like that.
Wow.
But then all these wonderful movies, Inherit the Wind, and all these great, tremendous High Noon, give me a break.
And Dragnet,
and all these things. And he's been a favorite of mine forever. A tremendous actor, and just have nothing but huge respect for him and watching what he did. So that would probably be my favorite.
So what about Rita Wilson?
Of course. You're right. That's my first guest appearance. My favorite. Absolutely. Harry who?
I mean, you never danced with Harry. But
yeah, Harry. I love that Harry Houdini guy. He was great. He's a Colonel guy. He was terrific.
Thomas Fiery. It's so good to have Ryan out of recovery and have you back both again. That's great. Thank you. I have a question for Jeff. I find that as I think back on big moments in my life, things both seem to be a short time ago and yet a long time, if not a lifetime ago. Jeff, you actually get to see yourself and your castmates on MASH. Does it seem that time was a short or a long time ago? How has your appreciation of that time of your life changed over the years? And is there anything about your time on MASH that you think of now that you wish you had known then? And then, of course, he also wants to know liver or fish.
I have to lay on the couch and answer this question. Whoa, holy moly! You're getting right into the weeds here.
Do you need to talk to your therapist first?
I think I do. Hold on. Well, first of all, yeah, I agree with you. We're very happy that Ryan has recovered to the point that he can actually talk and sit up and do all these things that normal people do now. So
yeah,
we're
sometimes
very grateful that happened. What did he ask me? What was that?
Huh? Well, because you get to see yourself in these reruns.
Yes.
Does it seem like that was yesterday, or does it seem like it was 100 years ago? And
okay.
That's the first question.
Yeah. Yes, it seems like it was yesterday. My wife and I were actually watching one on Hulu the other day, and it was a kind of a fun episode, and I really enjoyed it. And we laughed and thought that was a fun moment for Igor. And when I watched it, I was there. It was just like time had not passed. This was yesterday or a week ago. So that does happen for me. It doesn't seem like a million years ago, perhaps because the episodes are on so much and I have watched them and I watch the show from time to time. And so maybe that keeps it present for me. If I hadn't been watching it for a while and then just saw one, I go, oh my gosh, that was 30,000 years ago. Now, I still, on the other side of that, I still think, oh my gosh, that was 40 years ago that we did that, which is a kind of an amazing thing, but I don't feel it as 40 years ago. I feel it as just, hey, we just did that last week.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun thing.
The second question is, how has your appreciation of that time in your life changed over the years?
I love it more than I did then. I appreciate the show more. I appreciate the acting more. I appreciate the stories more. I have grown a tremendous respect for it that I did not have back then. Not that I didn't like it, but I was a young, whippersnapper actor guy, and this was a job. And I was looking at this and then looking at other things because I was on other shows. I guest appeared on various sitcoms and stuff like that. So all those things were part of the actor head. I wasn't necessarily, putting all my eggs in the basket of MASH. However, after all these years and hearing the response and hearing the kinds of emails and comments that we get on MASH Matters over the years has really changed my mind and has really opened me up to how wonderful this program was and what an impactful thing it was. It wasn't just a TV show. This had real emotional connection to so many people and gave so many people pleasure and enlightenment and fun and all that kind of stuff. And so I'm real impressed.
As you should be.
So that's over the years. That's what that's it. It really, truly did. And it took years for it to happen. I respected it back then, but now I really have a true appreciation, like along with our listeners and along with the fans that still love MASH.
The third part of the question was, is there anything about your time on MASH that you think now that you wish you had known then?
Get a better agent. I wish I had a better agent. No, not really. What was done then was then. And I did what I believed in was correct back then. Mm-hmm. So all the moves that I made and all the relationships that I had and all the people that I worked with in order to create a career in show business and a career as an actor and a career on this television show, I believe in, and I wouldn't go back and change anything because it kept me there and I learned a lot and I have tremendous appreciation and tremendous friendships and relationships because of it. So I'm very grateful that it happened the way it did.
I'd say, though, that you probably would have kept a journal of all these little facts had you known that 40 years later you were going to be hosting a podcast where people are going to be asking you about these facts.
Yes, so I wouldn't have to say, I don't know.
Yeah. Yes, I know what that dance was.
Yeah, let me check the journal, Bob, and I'll get right. Well, part of that is it was 40 years ago.
Well, yes.
And
yes.
So, I don't remember a lot that happened 40 years ago, let alone all of it.
Neither do I.
Yeah. I'm glad you don't, because if you did, I would feel awful.
All right, moving on. Leslie says, all right, here goes. My waiting in the wings ultimate question. Keeping in mind, I still haven't heard all of the MASH Matters episodes. What? Leslie, come on.
No.
Oh. She says, I know, I'm getting there. Have any of these Sister Teresa's orphanage kids ever been heard from? The two teddy bear thieves and the chocolate Christmas candy kids who were not fans of pig's feet and hog's jowls, and the three kids listening to Colonel Potter read about a rifle. These kids that would come in with Sister Teresa, she wants to know, have we ever talked to any of them? And the answer, of course, is no, we have not. And I don't know how to get in touch with somebody like that.
Yeah.
Unless somebody listening knows one of these actors who, as a child, played one of these orphans on MASH. And if so, please have them get in touch with us. mashmatterspodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
I mean, some of these kids were really young, too, so they may not remember too much about their time.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Jeff. They don't remember what they were doing.
Too much of anything.
But yeah, we'd love to talk to any of the kids that were on MASH.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Kids in show business and kids as actors have a real difficult time because they are governed by so many rules and regulations back then. They had to have teachers on the set. They had to have certain times they could do this and they couldn't do that. And they had to be in school. And there's a lot of stuff that kids had to go through just to sit and listen to, some actor say something. So it was a difficult thing for them to do. I would imagine a lot of them didn't like it and said, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
And probably went on to be very fine people and have different careers. I don't know. If some of them are around, that'd be really fun to talk to, wouldn't it?
If they want to talk about it,
Yeah.
they may not want to talk about it. Okay. Thank you, Leslie. Now, Samantha Lawrence says, I'm interested in hearing what folks did on set to pass the time when they weren't on camera. I assume Alan Alda wasn't really a knitter like his character once led us to believe. We're not going to get back into the whole knitting thing again, because that's been a running theme throughout the show. But yes, I believe Alan's daughter, Elizabeth, confirmed that Alan was not an actual knitter. So what did y'all do to pass the time when you weren't shooting?
Sat around and talked. It was really exciting. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty dull. Really, that was pretty much it. The good thing about MASH is that there were a lot of very interesting, creative people and with great stories and great senses of humor and great things going on. And so if you didn't like one story, you could turn around and get another story somewhere or get involved and tell your own story. So there was a lot of talking. And one of the fun things about MASH, and I think Alan Alda has talked about that, is that because there was such a good relationship and we were all kind of having fun with each other and talking, and everybody was, that when they started the scene and the cameras turned on, these were the same people having the same fun and the kind of the same relationships in a sense. And that helped the characters be so real and so grounded and so fun. That's what we did. I mean, we all kind of liked each other and everybody had a good time. And quote, the background artists, we're all connected and, we'd all sit around and talk or go get food and sit around and eat and talk and just a lot of eating and talking. Well, there was a circle of chairs that was there for the quote main cast. And anybody who was in a scene and had to rehearse, they go sit in these circle of chairs and talk. But really, that was there to do that. But once the rehearsing was over, nobody would get up and leave. They just all sit there and talk to each other and say funny things and laugh and have a good time. So that was really kind of what we did, just sit around and talk to each other.
There was no internet. There were no smartphones.
Exactly. Yeah.
You sit around, you could read, I guess. Talk and eat. Which is, I love sitting around and eating. That's what I do best. I think I would have loved that.
Yeah, you'd have fit right in, by golly.
Before we move on, just to give a quick shout out to a couple of our brand new supporters on Patreon. We have Private Daniel Tidwell, Private Adam Sanders, and Captain Gary Mizaros. I hope I pronounced your name right, Gary. If not, let us know. But those are our newest enlistees. All of our questions coming from our Patreon folk today, including Marie Westerland, who is our Patreon supporter in Sweden.
Oh, hi, Marie.
She says, it is a relief to hear that you're safe from the fires, Jeff. How terrifying it must be to be so close. I have a couple of questions. Let's start with a question about questions. What is the most common question you get from podcast listeners? Also, Jeff, there were many directors on MASH. Which are the biggest challenges with that and the biggest advantages? And Ryan, we heard about you being in Fiddler on the Roof a while back. Do you have other acting experiences? Take care, both of you. All right. So the most common question you get from podcast listeners. Well, I'm kind of the keeper of the email. And so I see a lot of the questions that come in more than Jeff. I get to see the questions that we get more often than not. And we've answered a lot of them. Was the food on the chow line, was it real food or what was it? Was the liquid in the still real or was it just water? What's Alan Alda really like? And then, of course, what Thomas asked earlier, liver or fish? People love to ask that question. So those are kind of the questions we get a lot. And then Jeff, various directors. So you had many directors through the years. Were there challenges with that? Or are there advantages to having so many different directors?
I don't think there are advantages to having so many different directors because I think once a director who did more episodes than anybody, Charlie Dubin, I think he did 65 or 68 episodes. And I think that the cast gets very, very comfortable with somebody like that and is happy to have that a comfort zone. When you have other directors come in, and some of them come in with a little bit of an agenda or a little bit of an attitude, not all of them, but some of them kind of come in with a little bit of that. And so that sort of disrupts kind of the camaraderie, and then you feel a little threatened, and you got to be a little bit more protective in what you're doing or the performance, or you're worried somebody's going to say, no, I don't want you to do that. Whereas a guy like Charlie Dubin knows you know them, and so it's a real good, cohesive feel. Now, I know that Jackie Cooper, who directed a lot of episodes as well, he had problems because he was kind of a pit bull.
Yeah.
He wanted to go real fast, and God love him, because that's, a lot of people who were making television shows would go, yeah, Jackie moved through that because he could, bring a show under budget maybe, or get on budget or whatever. So, but the cast didn't like that speed. They didn't like his attitude with the speed. So that was a problem. And some other directors may have come in with a little bit something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a really good thing you have a director that you're really comfortable with, and he or she has been around for a long time, and you feel good about it. And that on some shows, it could be 2 or 3 directors that you feel good about as well. Might not just be one person, but it could be 2 or 3 people you're also very comfortable with. But if somebody else comes in, go, hey, I don't like that. Hey, put that thing over there. Nobody wants that.
So outside of Charlie Dubin, who I know you were very fond of, were there any other directors that you really liked working with?
Yes, Hy Averback. He was the other guy. I really loved Hy Averback. Terrific guy. He used to be on the Lucille Ball show a million years ago as small parts, and he was an actor for a while.
He was a writer and announcer for Bob Hope too, I think, wasn't he, on radio?
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Very talented man. Great sense of humor. Great insights. Yeah. I loved working with Hy. He was terrific. So Hy Averback and Charlie Dubin were my 2 favorites anyway.
I won't tell Alan that he wasn't one of your favorites.
Alan who? Who? Alan? He was terrific, but unfortunately, he didn't do a lot of them. I mean, he did a lot of them, but compared to those people, he didn't really.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Let's see. Then she asked about my acting.
Yes, let's talk about your acting. You are a terrific actor, and you've done a lot of great stuff. And I wish we could all come and see you doing a lot of great stuff.
I have not done anything that anybody can see. I do local theater. I'm not a professional. I'm just an amateur actor, and I love doing it. And I have done a lot of shows. I know it's somewhere in the neighborhood of 100 shows that I've done over the last 35 whatever years. So I've done a lot of stage work. So most of my stuff has been on the stage at community theaters here in the southern part of Illinois.
And, I've said this before, I'll say it one more time. It's the purest form of acting you can get, because it's not about, I'm doing this to get myself on a series or to get myself a part in a movie. I'm doing this because I really love acting, and I really love doing this, and I really love being in this theatrical environment. That's what's so important, and that's what's so impressive about you and about people who do, little theater, because it's the purest form you can get. So congratulations to that, and everybody else who does it.
Well, thank you. It's a great outlet for all of us local narcissists. To say, look at me, without getting paid for it.
Oh, that's an interesting term for yourself. Yeah. Local narcissist.
Yes. Okay, Mark Geyer says, if you were in charge of programming, what would be your perfect night of primetime television? Ooh.
Wow.
Doesn't matter if they originally appeared on different networks. Also, if you were talking to someone who had never seen MASH, what would be the 5 or so episodes that you would recommend that they watch to get a good feel for it? The ones that really show what MASH is, about getting them interested in watching more, so they may be different from your favorites. Okay. Let's tackle that second question first. The episodes that you would recommend that they watch to get a good feel for it. Back, I think it was in season 2, when we did our season 2 recap. I believe it was season 2. The episode Crisis, where they all have to bunk together to conserve heat and electricity. I think at that time I said that would be one of my picks for an episode to show somebody for the very first time, because everybody is in that. Everybody has moments in that really show their characters, and they're all together. So I think that's a good one. Also from season 2, the episode Divided We Stand, when a psychiatrist comes in to do an evaluation on everybody in the camp. And so he individually talks about all of the characters and who they are. It was kind of like a second pilot for the show, because the first season, MASH did not do great in the ratings. And so season 2, when they got picked up, they started the season with kind of a second pilot to reintroduce all these characters to people who may not have watched the first season. So that would be a good one. I think Adam's Ribs is a fun one to show. There's quite a few that I think that would be, Dear Sigmund. Dear Sigmund would be probably at the top of the list too. Because again, that's Sydney writing a letter and describing all of the different characters. I would not recommend starting with Dreams or any of those kinds of episodes that are divisive. But I think those are some of the episodes. I don't know if, Jeff, you have anything else in mind?
You have said it all. I agree with everything you said.
And every episode that Igor was in.
Oh, of course. No, I just looked down in my journal and I had that written down. Everything that Igor was in. Yeah.
He also asked, if you were in charge of programming, what would your perfect night of primetime television be? Woo.
Wow.
That is a tough one.
That is tough. Can we get back to him on that one?
We might have to do that on another episode. I have to really think about that. Obviously, MASH would be in there, but boy, oh boy. Yeah. Let's put a bookmark right there.
Podmark.
Podmark. I had one of those, but they gave me that ointment and it took care of it.
You got that ointment. It's expensive now, though. That ointment. It's gone up.
It really is.
And it's not covered by insurance anymore. I don't know why.
Okay, so let's see here. We've still got quite a few questions. Again, we're probably not going to get to everybody's. David Mann asks, a lot of the shooting season seems to coincide with the rainy season in Southern California. Did you have many cold, wet days at the ranch, and how did it affect shooting?
Yes, we had cold, wet days at the ranch, and it affected shooting because everybody was in a miserable mood and hated it and ran off to their little dressing room trailer thing as often as they could, or hid in the tin huts trying to be warm. So, yeah, it was not pleasant. I recently appeared out at the ranch and talked to a lot of people. It was a kind of a fun evening out there talking about the experiences of working out at the ranch. And I sort of wanted to apologize later to everybody because I think I came down on the side of it being miserable. It was miserable.
Right.
It was either really, really cold or then really, really hot. And there were a lot of yellow jackets and bugs and things. And so it wasn't the most pleasant place to be. But it was still a very exciting moment because it was a pretty area. It was very beautiful. And so you looked around and you said, oh, this is really pretty and it's really nice. But the weather made it not so pleasant most of the time. But yes, it was really cold and sometimes it stopped production a little bit because everybody was really freezing and they didn't want to go out and do that. And so it was tough. It was on location in a difficult area and everybody made the best of it. But it was still a tough thing to do.
What he said. I can't answer that. Brian Berg says, hey guys, Jeff, glad you're okay considering the fires, and Ryan, happy to hear you're recovering from surgery. Thank you. I have a question which you both had quickly commented upon in an episode, but would really love more information about it. MASH is considered one of the most beloved and admired shows in U.S. TV history, yet Disney completely ignored its 50th anniversary, which seems quite odd. Since I'm assuming that your show was given some sort of license by Fox or Disney to air clips and use music, is there any chance of having a representative from Disney on your show and asking them what any future promotion of the show might be? Obviously, with company execs, you cannot just ask them what's wrong with them and why they ignored MASH as much as you may want to do so, but perhaps a more general conversation with an exec can be had. Okay, well...
What's wrong with you?
Yeah, let's get somebody on and say, our first question, what's wrong with you? Are you crazy?
I love to see the expression on their face. Man.
Boy, that would be a short interview, I think.
Watch them stand up and walk out.
You assume, you say, Brian, that they've given us some sort of license? No, they haven't. It's kind of like one of those, asking for forgiveness instead of asking for permission kind of a thing. We're just kind of quietly doing our thing over here. And probably the reason we'll never talk to an executive from Disney is because we don't necessarily want Disney to know we're here.
And it would probably be the general counsel for Disney that would be talking to us legally right. Rather than the executives. They don't have time to do that, but the lawyers would call up.
So no, we have not had contact with anybody from Disney and nor will we probably. I was disappointed with Disney's lack of anything for MASH's 50th, really. I mean, it really was sad that they didn't acknowledge it in any way since they own it now. At least, send a card or something. My goodness. Some flowers. A cake would be nice. But, Disney owns Star Wars, Disney owns Marvel, Disney owns Disney. And I just think MASH is so far down on their list of priorities that it's sad, but that's kind of the truth of the matter.
Other people made documentaries about the 50th anniversary.
Yeah. And we've done our part.
We've done our part, yes.
I'm very happy being here in our little corner of the world where Disney doesn't really know about us.
And I think, on some level, certainly we're doing nothing to harm the show.
Oh, heck no.
Except not knowing the answers to most questions. But other than that, we're not doing too much harm, I don't think.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah, so if anybody from Disney is listening, just pretend that you didn't hear any of this. Okay, just skip this and go to another podcast and listen to somebody else. Okay, Kiranjeet, our friend Kiranjeet says, here's a random, unrelated to MASH question.
Uh-oh.
If you could go back in time to any point in history and hang out for a day, where would you go? Okay. I have always been fascinated with the early days of Hollywood, entertainment, radio. I would love to go back and sit in on a live radio show. I'd love to sit and watch Jack Benny do his show, be in the audience, just to see what that was like. That's me. Jeff, what about you?
That's really cool. I'm kind of similar. I'm sort of in the same, but I thought you were going to say something like, hang out with George Washington or something. But
no. I there's too much like dysentery and stuff back there. I don't think I'd make it through the day, honestly.
And the ointment for that is so expensive now. Nothing, don't insure it or anything.
That's right.
I'm in the same ballpark. What I would do is go back to the Rat Pack days of Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and all those guys. I would love to hang out with those guys for a day and just see the energy and feel what they did. And they were such talented people and were able to get up on a stage in Las Vegas. I would love to go back and hang out at the Sands Hotel or whatever hotel they were doing their show in, or with Martin and Lewis, Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin at the Sands Hotel. I know they were there. I'd love to be part of that and see those guys. That's where I would hang out.
So some of these questions we're going to save for another episode. So let's just go ahead and jump to our last question. This is from Jolie Scott. Hi, Jeff and Ryan. So glad to have you back. This question is from my husband, Bill. Well, hi, Bill.
Hi, Bill.
Jeff, what was your favorite Igor scene? Ryan, what was your favorite Igor scene? And Bill's favorite, by the way, is Igor shooting the bugle out of Radar's hand. She says, thank you for all you do. We attended the event at the MASH site, and it'll always be a great memory for both of us.
Oh, that's nice. Oh, well, thank you. That's fun. Yeah, that was a fun night. Interestingly enough, the next morning, early the next morning, apparently this bobcat or something came out of the trees and grabbed a little kid, 9-year-old kid, and started to drag him away. And the father and various people jumped on the bobcat and pulled him off the kid. And the kid had to go to the hospital, but it was a really scary thing. I wasn't there. It was the next morning, early the next morning. But, that's why I say out there, you're out there in the, that's the jungle out there. So they've got bobcats and yellow jackets and all kinds of stuff. Bad weather.
By the way, people have also sent us messages asking if we know if the MASH site was affected by the wildfires. I have not found any information that it has been affected by it yet. I know it was close, but I don't think at this point, as of this recording, that it has affected the MASH site. If that changes, we will let you know.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it has either. I know there was some problem with Los Virgenes Road, which is the road you take in there, but they were just closing that. But it wasn't because there was a fire in that area. I don't know why they did it, but who knows?
Well, hopefully that stays.
Yeah, hope so. They've already had their darn fire out there.
Exactly. It happened during the Korean War.
I've said this before about my favorite episodes, and I loved every episode Private Igor was in.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to say what's my favorite.
Well, he's asking about Igor's scene. Is there a specific scene?
Every scene he was in, every moment he was on camera, I was thrilled. Some of them I wish I could do again, but I loved every minute of all of them. I really did. Certainly, one of the favorite ones was when I shot the bugle out of Radar's hand, because that was a scene that really attracted a lot of attention to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they looked at me and they all laughed in the dailies the next day and said, "Oh my God, that was the funniest takes we've ever seen." And so all of a sudden they realized I was a guy who could do these funny faces and react to things.
Yeah.
So that helped Igor move along, which I'm very grateful for. And so that was a favorite thing. And certainly the Adam's rib scene where Alan jumps up on the table, and it wasn't so much me, but just that whole moment was so much fun to be a part of. So all the others Igor was in it, also my favorite scenes.
I also love the bugle scene. You know, if I had to choose my absolute favorite, that's probably it, but I will give a runner-up. During the heat wave, when Winchester is in the mess tent sorting out all of his tax receipts and Igor comes in and turns on the fan. Anytime that Igor and Charles were in a scene together made my day. And so to have that interaction where Igor comes in and just ruins everything that he has been working on all night long is an absolute favorite of mine.
Hey, Igor and Charles, there was one I saw the other night, and I really didn't remember. Oh, wow. We were playing bingo or something. And Charles and I were sitting next to each other, and we got into this argument about the beans and the stuff, and I got mad at him. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. That was fun. Do you know the name of that episode?
Yeah. Okay. So that was Ain't Love Grand.
Really?
From season 7.
What was the storyline? Do you remember?
Well, Charles finds a Korean lady of the night and has a little romance with her, and Klinger has a little fling with a nurse. And then also BJ is all in his head about a patient who had to have some major rewiring done. And so he's on edge too. And that scene, the bingo scene, I know BJ comes in to confront Hawkeye because Hawkeye was supposed to be taking over for him in post-op, and Hawkeye got wrapped up in the bingo game instead. Meanwhile, back in the back, you've got Igor and Charles with their beans.
Yeah, there was an argument about the beans and whose beans they were. And Colonel Potter finally said, "Okay, I'm telling you that it was Charles's beans." And that ended the argument.
So I'm guessing you didn't write anything about the beans in your journal that day?
Let me see. Wait, just let me see. The bean. It's on page 14. But I bingoed. I was the guy. I stood up.
Yeah, you were the winner.
I was the winner. I got bingo.
And hey, bingo, we're done.
Oh, bingo, we're done.
Thank you to all of our Patreon VIPs for submitting these last minute questions. Again, if we did not get to your question, we will add it to our very long list of other questions that we will hopefully get to in future episodes. You, of course, can always get in touch with us, mashmatterspodcast@gmail.com. Find us on social media on Instagram, X, and Facebook. And you can call and leave a voicemail. We still have a lot of voicemails that we haven't gotten. My goodness, we're so behind. It's almost like we took a 4.5 month hiatus or something here.
Yeah.
But you can also call and leave a voicemail under 3 minutes in length. And that number is 513-436-4077.
Now, if you need to leave a longer message, it's only 3 minutes you get on that recorded system, but you can call it 10 times if you want.
We have had listeners do that.
Aha. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have said that. Oops, sorry. But this has been fun. I really personally thank you for all of the concerns about us during the fire issues, and certainly Ryan being frozen out in the frozen tundra. It's very heartwarming to know that people care, and yes. I certainly thank you. I will pass along your care to Jamie Farr, by golly.
Hopefully the winds don't fire up and
well,
I guess I shouldn't say fire up, but
great choice.
Too soon?
I get it.
Too soon. Yeah, no, I get it. Anyway, best to you, and hopefully the next time we talk, everything will be done.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be great?
Hope so.
Until next time, here's looking up your old address.